Good evening, Endeavour. Here I am this very wet Tuesday evening, ready to read you our next extract for Wednesday. And we're on chapter 22. The author has taken us back now to the Storm Inn and to the station. Are our trio going to make the midnight train? Let's see. I'm sorry that I had to upset your dinner with that disgusting poem, but sometimes life is like that and sometimes people can be very rude. The real poem was written by a lady from Wales and is much more polite. She'd be very upset if she knew what people have done to her famous poem. So, if you see her, don't tell her. Uncle Edward filled his lungs with air and used his powerful voice to shout down the man on the table. The magic lantern flickered into life and showed the deck of a fine man-of-war sailing ship. It rocked up and down as if it was riding on the ocean waves. The crowd settled a little. Then I pressed the switch that sent a small wheel spinning in the warm air from the lamp. The wheel held up pieces of red and yellow glass. As they spun, the cast a flickering flame onto the picture. It looked as if the warship was on fire. The mob was really hooked now. It should have been so easy. All we had to do was recite the poem as I acted out the part of the brave little boy. Then we could pack everything up and get to the station. It started well enough. Uncle Edward boomed. The boy stood on the burning deck, whence all but he had fled. The flame that lit the battle's wreck shone round him o'er the dead. I stood between the lantern and the screen till the flames ran across me and pretended to feel the heat. I heard someone sigh, "Ah." So I knew my acting was breaking their hard hearts. Uncle went on. Yet beautiful and bright he stood, as born to rule the storm, a creature of heroic blood, a proud though childlike form. I looked proud but childlike, in my sailor's uniform, but still a little afraid of the flames. The flames rolled on. He would not go without his father's word. That father faint in death below, his voice no longer heard. He called aloud. Now it was my turn to call aloud and hope I didn't forget the words. Say, father, say, is yet my task done? Uncle took up the terrible tale. He knew not that the chieftain lay unconscious of his son. We picked up the pace as I continued the panic. Speak, father, once again, he cried, if I may yet be gone. Uncle rattled an iron sheet that sounded like a thunder of cannon and cried. But the booming shots replied, and fast the flames rolled on. The member of the audience, who were on the edges of their seats. Then an awful woman stood on the table next to the man with the beard and the glass eye, and suddenly she cackled and screeched. The boy stood on the burning deck, his feet were full of blisters. The flames came up and burned his pants, and now he wears his sister's. Now, this has happened before, and one or two things could happen next. The mob could choose to support us, or they could choose to support the troublemaker. It all depended on what Uncle Edward did next. He looked at the man with the beard. Is that a wart on your arm, or is it your wife? One or two men in the crowd giggled, but the joke didn't go down well. The man with the beard was annoyed. You can't talk about my lovely wife like that, he shouted. Your lovely wife, Uncle Edward jeered. I've seen better faces on pirate flags. I've seen potatoes with prettier eyes. The crowd went quiet. They were turning against us. Now was the time to quit. But Uncle Edward was fired up. Still, I don't suppose someone as ugly as you could get a better-looking woman. Ugly? The man cried. Yes, is that really a face, or did your neck just throw up? No one laughed. Still, Uncle Edward didn't see how it was going all wrong. Why don't you just stick your nose out in your ear and blow your brains out? He jeered. The mob muttered and began to boo. The man with the beard tried to step forward to attack Uncle Edward, but he forgot he was standing on the table and he crashed down on the floor next to him. A woman in a red satin dress screamed, Hey, your glass eye just fell in my stew. She turned to the unshaven, square-jawed man next to her. Harry, his glass eye just fell in my stew. Do something. Harry wasn't sure if he wanted to throw the one-eyed man off the table or get the glass eye out of a stew. He picked up the bearded man by the collar into the seat of his pants and threw him across the room. The one-eyed man landed on a card table and scattered the playing cards and money on the floor. Some folks scrabbled for the cash. The gamblers charged across the room at the square-jawed man, kicking tables and customers out of the way. Soon everyone except the English gentleman in the corner had their ale and their stew spilled, and they were all looking to get their revenge on someone. Punches were thrown, tankards were thrown, finally chairs were thrown, and everyone was punching anyone in reach. Where was I? Uncle Edward asked, clearing his throat. But the booming shots replied, and fast the flames rolled on. No one was listening. I turned out the magic lantern and shouted to Theus, who was watching from the side of the stage. "Grab the coffin, Theus, let's get to the station as fast as we can." Theus understood. He picked up the coffin and placed it on his shoulder, while I wrapped the magic lantern in the screen cloth and tugged at Uncle's arm. "Time to go," I said. Theus looked at the riot and muttered, "Where did I go wrong?" "Theus, come on," I shouted. He followed us to the backstage door and into the cool, dark back alley. Uncle Edward was a little dazed. "I thought they rather liked us," he said. "To the station, Uncle, the midnight train." "Ah, yes," he said, and he fell into step with us. Rats scuttled out of the way, and even cutthroats in the shadows kept away from us. We stayed off the main street, slithered over the cobbles, and paddled over the puddles. But before 11 o'clock chimed on the town hall clock, we reached the station. We bought our tickets with some money in the coffin, and then used it to sit on. "Are you coming with us, Uncle Edward?" asked Theus. "I can't," said the Titan. "I had to leave my wings behind. I need to collect them when the storming's a little quieter. Anyway, I've got to stay to find my hero." "You saw little Jim in the show tonight. That's a hero for you," Uncle Edward argued. "It's just a myth," Theus said. "No, no," cried Uncle Edward. "It's a true story." Now, I know it seems strange, but Uncle was telling the truth for a change. The boy who stood on the burning deck was an admiral's son, and the ship was called the Orient. The Orient sunk, and the admiral's son waited for his father to let him go. But his father couldn't let him go because he was dead. The boy was blown up with the ship. Look it up in the history book if you don't believe me. Theus shook his head. "There's a temple in Eden City. I've got to get back and find the hero himself. It's a quest I've got to do for my cousin." "You've been a good help, my boy. I'm getting too old to carry that coffin much longer. We need a strong man like you to help us out. Why don't you join us?" he asked cheerfully. Then, from the shadows of the waiting doorway, a voice said, "He won't want to join you when he finds out you're headed for the gallows, Mr. Slaughter." Endeavour. Whose voice was that? We won't know till tomorrow. See you then, and have a good day.